What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Paddock, a Formula One podcast for the new and the familiar. And welcome back as we catch up on Miami, Spain, and get ready for Monaco. So let's just jump right into it. My name is Ray, and today we are joined by Pete.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Will.
Good evening, guys. How's it going?
And Patrick. Patrick Mahomes, is that you joining us? Or,
No, Mr. Brundle. It's Gio. It's good old Gio, and I would hope that your producer would have let you know that correctly in your ear before you hopped up to someone that was not Patrick Mahomes. Well, yeah, obviously.
what did you think of Miami?
Yeah, obviously going right into it, man. We got to cover a little bit of Miami since we missed last week. It was a spectacle, man. It had USA written all over it. Unfortunately, right? I say it like that, right? The race itself, and the track, I didn't end up hating as much as I thought I was gonna hate. It was a decently built track. It was nice. It was, good to look at. But honestly, what it was more about what it was out or off of the racetrack, right? Like the Martin Brundle grid walk was hilarious. It was all over Twitter. It ended up being like pretty hilarious and sweet in a way, but in my head I'm like, you can't just go on the grid and not know who half the people are. And I don't want to blame him too much. Like I would hope that his team would have like saved him a little better. Like
any producer could have screamed like those celebrities in their ear.
In Martin's defense, though, that's the beauty of the grid walk. He went up to AMD's CEO Lisa Xu at the Chinese Grand Prix and asked her if she spoke Chinese. She's an American, for Pete's sake.
See, I didn't know that, but man.
And at the time, they were a sponsor of Ferrari, and now they're a major sponsor of Mercedes. But that's the Martin Brundle grid walk. He just does what he does.
I think it was just like secondhand embarrassment, but then also just like, oh my god, like hilarious as it was slowly unfolding in front of us.
Yeah.
Awkward.
Yep.
Yeah. Good. I mean, good race. I think there was the talk of it being a boring race, right? But I didn't really see it as a boring race. I just thought it was because there was so much theatrics around the lead up to the event that people expected a Michael Bay film or something, right? And Ray, we had this conversation before, but when people say, "Oh, it was a boring race," what they really meant was like, "I wish we saw a crash," right? And I hate seeing that because like that's people's lives, man, And honestly, that's where a lot of the excitement does come from. Like if you're being realistic, it's like I hope someone spins out and or someone flips their car or something. But another, you're gonna get that a lot. If Americans are watching this, they're gonna think anything is boring, right? Because Americans think soccer is boring. Americans think that it was a good race, right? It had your thrills. You had the you had a little Verstappen, Leclerc, battle towards the end and stuff. But yeah, I enjoyed it, and I got a nifty sweater, so I can lie and say that I went to F1 Miami
on the hottest day in Miami of the year.
Yeah, of course. Got to wear.
Finally finds that sugar daddy.
Yeah, I found my sugar daddy. I went for a day. I was on one of the yachts.
In that faux harbour.
Well, I was going to say, I was quite distracted in the race because every time they panned in on that artificial harbour, I was like, I'm fascinated. How did those boats get in there?
Did you guys think it was cool or not?
No, because I didn't see the backstory about it. It took me a good long while to go, that is an artificial harbour, and those boats definitely didn't get in there.
Oh,
So, oh, by the way, there's a race going on that I've completely and utterly missed, because every time they keep showing that harbour, I'm like, ooh, I am fascinated.
see, I have to disagree with you, Gio. It wasn't a boring race. It was bad TV direction. You know, they were too focused on the battle on the front, and they weren't showing the mid pack. It had the second most overtakes of the year, but they barely showed them. That's my frustration with it. You know, especially if they got this picture-in-picture technology. Put Leclerc and Verstappen in a small window, focus on the interesting stuff, and then bring it up if something's about to happen into the main screen with Leclerc and Verstappen. Like, how hard is it?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, too true. I'm trying to think who commentated. Did Budden commentate? I can't even remember.
It was Montoya, and they had him there commentating, and I think Jensen was there for a little bit because they were talking about Lewis and Russell. And, I mean, I got to say, Russell's been showing me, like, consistent performance. I'm blown away by how he's handling that car. And, I mean, even going into Spain, I think Mercedes is going to be looking good. I'm back to Team Mercedes, by the way.
No.
boo, boo.
Hey, well, you know, they're scrapping, and then you're seeing a lot of promise from, like, a little bit of obviously skipping past Miami, but bunch of you know, a little bad luck for Lewis, but you see the trajectory, like you see that they're working out their kinks, right? But I think at the end of the day, you're still only going to get, you know, P3 through 5 from Mercedes, just like the way things are going, which is way better than I guess we thought we were going to get from Mercedes. But now I'm glad they were able to, you know, work out some of the kinks. But yeah, Russell has been impressive, has been like Mr. Consistent throughout the year.
Mr. Saturday, he's throwing his elbows out again.
And he impressed a bunch of people in Spain, right? You know, what was that he had that battle
With Verstappen.
Yeah, with Verstappen. Clean, you know.
Parked his car in the middle.
Yeah. You knew it was gonna, you know, he's gonna get, you know, there was gonna be an overtake, but he fought it off. He played some good defense, but yeah, Russell in both those races were incredible.
How would you be
Let's
feeling
look
if
at
you were
Russell's-
Hamilton now? Hamilton, I don't think Hamilton's finished ahead of him yet this season, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah. No,
Well,
they.
rumor
I
has-
think- Oh no, sorry.
Rumor has it Hamilton's been the guinea pig in doing a lot of experimentation and let Russell do the more conservative setup and then push for the better results. But Russell's also showing why he was an F2 rookie champion when he won. You know, he bet Norris, Albon, Latifi, Nick De Vries when he won the championship in F2.
Yeah.
The dude's got chops.
Yeah.
But his first year, he was racing against one guy who had one working hand with Robert Kubica.
He did so. Yeah.
And then he was up against Latifi for 2 years. Of course, like, you know, he's not really going to be compared against anyone.
Yeah.
Now he's stepped up into the big team. He's showing his qualities finally on a Saturday. He can race. The dude is a talented driver.
Well, I don't know, Pete, because, you know, Latifi actually did finish ahead of Albon in Spain.
Outrun too.
Who knew?
He finished. He finished. Gio, like, how are you feeling right now?
He finished twice.
Well, you know, I think he's obviously aware that he's fighting for his seat, right? And I think what expectations for a Williams driver is like to finish the damn race, right? I don't think expecting him to finish in points and whatever. His main goal is to look as decent as possible without messing up an entire race, and that's what he's trying to do. You can't blame him. I would love to see a story like in Monaco that there's this massive crash and he finishes in on the podium. Like if I get to see Latifi on a podium in this year, like that's the kind of stuff those are the Vegas odds that people become millionaires.
Redemption. Like there was Rudy, now there's Latifi.
Oh yeah, please. I'd watch that Netflix movie immediately if someone comes up with a. But that would make a really that would make a great movie of if you, and I hate to say Latifi's I saw some early clips of Latifi and it was I couldn't believe what he is now. Versus when he first came into F1, I think someone showed me a clip. I was like, no way, this guy's a monster. But man, you give me a movie on Netflix or something about an underdog or someone who's been stinking up the racetrack and wins that one race, and it's just this Rudy story,
Yeah,
I love
eat it up.
I'd eat that shit up.
Well, I sense we have to do something then if Latifi does finish on the podium. We've got a shoey for Ricardo, but we're got to do something for Latifi.
Yeah, how are you guys feeling about McLaren's performance lately?
What
Lando did well in Spain.
Okay.
But Miami, Lando should have gave Gasly more space, but Ricardo needs to step up or he's going to be replaced.
Yeah.
Pressure's on.
Yeah. Lando's consistently outperforming in races. He's generally doing better in qualifying. McLaren are looking at Colton Herta if he can get the super license points. He's young, he's attractive, he's American.
Yeah.
He's doing well in Indy, so yeah. Unfortunately, I see Ricardo's on a downward trajectory. And remember, he's only 2 years younger than Vettel.
Yeah, I saw that tweet where it's like they're like they're sending Vettel out to pasture, and Ricardo's really only 2 years younger than him, and it's wild.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, I think it just shows for any athlete, right? Like I think it's very difficult to, I guess, for coming off of loss after loss after loss, to keep that same drive, no pun intended,
Yeah.
to keep that same drive. And, even the brightest of personalities can be weighed down by loss, right? He needs, for him to do well, I think he has to perform well early in the season for that to trickle on to the rest, right? Since they were struggling from the gate, since they were, in that tractor status from the jump of the season, it's hard to, pick yourself up, right? There wasn't really any highlight of the car or of his driving early on in the season for them to work off of, right? Like if you take, you compare it to Max Verstappen, right? Like he didn't have the strongest start, but there were so many highlights in his driving, and there were so many, you knew it was coming. You knew something was coming because the car can perform, right? Like you already knew it had this straightaway speed, and they just had these technical issues they needed to work out. There wasn't really technical issues, like obvious technical issues on the McLaren car. They just weren't performing, and then Lando outshining Ricardo constantly. And I hated to see it. I do not want to see Lando doing better than Ricardo, but now we're getting well within the season, and Ricardo has to perform, but easier said than done. Like he just has too much loss on his back to It'd be incredible if he can muster up something, to at least show that he deserves that seat, but I don't know. They're not working with the best car this year either, so.
I actually saw a great tweet by Laura Leslie just before the episode. I've just found it. Ricardo at Renault, 38 races, 173 points, 8 top 5 finishes with 2 podiums, an average finish of 8.03. Ricardo at McLaren, 28 races, 126 points, 6 top 5 finishes, 1 podium, which was his win, and an average finish of 8.96. He's only 10 races behind, and he's got significantly less points and a lower average finish. And the first year that Renault wasn't anywhere near as good as McLaren was this year or the year before.
I was thinking too is don't forget he's sort of danced around a lot of teams now as well. You know, he's had this is his third team in less than 3 years, 4 years or something. I think it is.
He's raced for 6 teams in total, if my memory serves me correct.
That's right. Like,
HRT, Toro Rosso, Red Bull, Renault, and McLaren.
And don't forget too, like, you know, he's that bit older as well. So, you know, this is, you know, the you know, he's at the end of his career. He's not going to get a position at Ferrari or anything like that. Like, I think this is his last chance at the top team.
But people have a go in for leaving Red Bull. But look what Red Bull did Perez on Sunday.
Well,
you know, team orders on the 6th race. Come on, guys.
Yeah, I saw that when he like rated. We're gonna have a talk after this race. What did you think about that?
Bullshit. I was pissed for Perez.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, he deserved that race win.
Oh wow.
You know, he took care of his tyres. He managed to overtake Russell. He didn't spin off like Verstappen. Now, in Verstappen's defence, it was a gust of wind that sent his back end flying out like Carlos.
Yeah.
But, you know, putting team orders in on the 6th race of the year, it's not necessary. You know, they only did it to give Verstappen championship lead.
Yeah. You know.
You know what though? That's Red Bull. You know, unfortunately, they with people like Helmut Marko in the team, they, you know, that'll always be Red Bull. They'll always favour a driver, and they'll always make a harsh decision all about pure winning. Like, yeah, Checo should have been given the chance, but I'm going to say that's Red Bull.
And well, ask Mark Webber. He experienced it in his time with Seb Vettel. Seb Vettel was the golden goose, the first driver from the Red Bull's youth academy to go through. Verstappen, the car's designed around his input heavily. You know, he's the golden child again.
Well, yeah,
marketable.
We were just talking about Ricardo. I mean, you know, Ricardo's suffering from the need to be that number one driver, right? And he jumped ship from you know, he saw the writing on the wall at Red Bull, right?
Yep.
But yeah, Perez definitely deserved it, right? There was times in that race in the Spanish Grand Prix that you know, Verstappen couldn't pass George Russell, right? But Perez,
and he
Perez had the you know, had it. He could easily pass him. He even I think he was on the radio a couple of times trying to you know let me do it, right, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. After that, now you know, Verstappen leads in points. He's at 110 versus Charles's 104. And you know, obviously we're moving past Miami now on the Spanish Grand Prix. Bad luck for Charles, man. Because yeah, like that was definitely his race, right? Like maybe
that was his race.
Yeah.
Yep.
Felt bad. You know, I was watching live when you just hear him on the radio, and he's like, no, right? You just hear it in his voice, like he's just so like he was so defeated because he was running a heck of a race, and his I think his power unit or something or engine failure or whatever it was.
You know what? It still blows me away in today's age. Since they changed the point system from a race win being 10 points, a race win now 25 points, it really shows how impacting one DNF can be. Because, you know, Leclerc was miles ahead in the championship, then all of a sudden, from one retirement, Max is already leading the championship. And it was the same deal when Max had some retirements at the start of the year. You know, and it's still time, like I still have because I've got all this history in my head, I still had to go, how come one did not finish completely makes such a significant difference? And it's still, I get blown away by, the new point scoring system.
Well, remember Malaysia 2016 when Hamilton's engine failed and causing DNF? Rosberg finished fairly high up, but not a win, but fairly high up. It was Red Bull 1-2 that weekend. And it pretty much gave Rosberg the championship, effectively. You know, I still remember Hamilton's radio, no, and flames coming out the back end of his Mercedes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And even the point that the old scoring system, it was only the top 6 drivers that got points. So we get there's points all the way down to 10. But I'd have to sit back and work it out. But, you know, there are these championships back in the day that the world champion didn't actually win many races in that year. He was just more consistent in finishing second and third. I think Keke Rosberg
one race.
Yeah, Keke Rosberg, I think, is one of them. That year he was consistent but didn't win many races, and that's hard to fathom in today's point scoring system. But crazy.
Prost and Lauda effectively win championships by getting their car home and up in high places. Both of them were very similar in that regard. Going back even further, you know, you saying count your 5 best races. So I think it was Jim Clark has a 100% record in one championship because he won something like 5 races, or 6 races, something like that, and that gave him full points. Brabham was very close one season to that as well.
It's the best ability is availability. It's why I'm hearing like the commentators talk about how, you know, managing your tires throughout a race is more important than trying to go all out early on and get that fastest lap. But it makes me wonder, you know, given how tight the points race is up top, and from what we've seen within the differences of the cars with the reliability so far at the start of the season, what does that make you think for Red Bull and Ferrari going forward? Like, are we going to see this battle end up being close? Because I heard that who is it, Christian Horner, say that he thinks that the budget cap is too low given all the development needed that all the teams need. What do you guys think about that?
Christian looking after Red Bull by saying that.
Okay.
So Christian said very much something along those lines. You know, cost cap needs to go up. You know, there might be 7 teams may not be able to do the last 4 races.
Yeah.
The quote goes something like that. Otmar Southnow had a pretty good clapback about that. So Alpine set their budgets early. We kind of anticipate a little bit of inflation. Inflation doesn't creep up on us. If we can do it, for sure others can do it too. I'm not just for increasing the cap. You know, and the small teams as well are all going, no, it's really the big 4 powerhouses from the past 20 years. Red Bull, Ferrari, Mercedes and McLaren have all gone, we want higher budgets, because they're used to working with them. Whereas the smaller teams are so used to going, oh, do we do this upgrade? It's not going to give us much performance uplift, let's hold off. You know, they're used to operating on a shoestring budget. So, you know, if it means, you know, those big teams stop development on their current cars early and the smaller teams catch up because they play smart, I'm all for that. Because, you know, that goes to show the skill as a good team leader and team manager.
Or you can just look at someone else's car and design your car based on theirs.
Oh.
Had to say it.
Oh.
I always see all the responses in the comments are like, this is the pinnacle of motorsport. It should be the most expensive. Give them the money.
In Aston's defense, they had that car in the tunnel from late last year.
They're green bull.
So, you know,
I love the green bulls. That was really funny.
did you see the shade that Red Bull were throwing on the pit roll? The cans of green Red Bull.
I loved it. I loved it. And it didn't necessarily help out, you know, Aston Martin in the end result. I think that, like...
Give it time.
Well, listen, is it... They're back at pre-season testing stage, effectively. You know, they've changed entirely different area philosophies. You know, they went... I was actually reading an interview with Mike Crack, and he was saying, you know... Was it Mike Crack? Oh, Andy Green. Andy Green, sorry. And he was saying, you know, they went for the philosophy they did initially because it had the higher downforce. But it turns out the Red Bull and other teams who've got a very similar philosophy. I think McLaren's one of them. It mean the car can be ran lower with a less stiff ride height, which means you're not compromising performance. Whereas what Aston Martin had, you had to run very stiff, and then having to run up very hard to stop the porpoising, which defeated the purpose of the extra downforce.
Wow. Can I ask a technical question? And I'm not sure if it may be answered, but when I was watching Miami, I noticed how they were playing with the ride heights to help with the porpoising across the board. Like all the different teams were playing with the ride heights. And Mercedes even lowered their car by several millimeters to kind of help with that porpoising and for that race. But essentially, I guess due to the ground effects package, lowering it created more of like a wind buffer below it and increased the porpoising. So like their heads were moving even more as the race were going. And I guess like, my layman's engineering mind would be like, if it's lower, it should be getting like closer to the ground, not bouncing up and down more. So is there any reason for that? Could you explain that potentially?
All right, I'm not an engineer, but as far as I understand, by getting the car lower to the ground, it creates more of a suction, which in turn drags it down even further, which creates the porpoising because the car bombs out much more easily.
Okay.
So when it bombs out, the push down on top of the car stops, it bounces back up, and then it starts again, and it gets pulled back down, it bottoms out, and it repeats very, very quickly. But it turns out as well, Mercedes have solved their porpoising as of Spain.
Yeah, it seems like, I think that my favorite camera is that in-helmet camera across the board. And whenever they go to that camera and you just see, I don't know, the almost the violence that their head is shaking as they make these turns, I'm like, I don't know how they are able to control these cars around this track at those speeds, but it just makes me think like, man, once they get rid of this porpoising, really, the races could change drastically.
Yeah. Well, and that's it. Like the drivers are focusing on a small little point on the ground for the braking as well. They might be looking, that crack on the ground there is my braking point for corner 2 or something like that. So, with it shaking up and bouncing up and down, how can they pinpoint their ideal braking spot?
Yeah. There's I'm not an engineer either, but I've always been fascinated by the not so much the porpoising, but the late Ayrton Senna and his crash back in '94. And all the reasons why they're still, trying to understand what actually happened. And there was one theory that because there was a safety lap, his tyres weren't warm yet, and the car actually sat lower on the track. And because it sat lower on the track, there's two forces that need to go through a car, like the force under the car, the turbulence going through it and above. And because the tyres were flatter, his car was positioned lower. And what happens is when the car's going through the air and the velocity is coming on the car, it obviously needs to remain constant, and the smaller the gap under the car, the faster you'll go, etc. And there was a belief that as he was racing, the lower you go to the ground, if that air gets restricted going under the car, the next time the car lifts and it does get through again, it'll cause a projectile, so the car will launch itself. And my understanding is that the porpoising is that airflow under the car. It's bouncing, so it's in that sort of hitting as it's reaching and sucking the car down and lifting the car. And that's what's always made me worry about these porpoising cars, because if that velocity suddenly gets a big gush under the car, these cars will literally be missiles into fences, etc. So. It probably isn't an answer, but just a bit of insight that I've always got in the back of my mind in relation to the porpoising, and it's about the air getting under the car, and if it's disrupted or etc., that's what makes the bouncing. So.
Well, I think that's fascinating, because if you look at just the two races back to back, essentially every time a car crashed, there would be another car crashing in that same location on the same turn, and it can be from something as simple as just a tailwind spinning the car entirely around and sending it into the gravel. I thought that was interesting as well.
That's it. Carlos and Max had the same issue. They got caught out by a gust of wind because it unsettled the aerodynamics of the back end. Back end had no grip, and these cars have so much mass and weight at the rear of the car. As soon as the rear end begins to step out, it's got that much inertia. It's just going to keep on going. You saw Carlos, like, he lost pretty well completely, whereas Max caught it, but to counter it, he had to steer into the gravel trap. And even then, he was still struggling and fighting it. Like, he didn't have full control until he slowed down enough for his tyres to get enough mechanical grip to then arrest it.
Yeah.
Like, it's very tricky.
Well, I think Mercedes is figuring out some of these issues. We're seeing Russell made it to the podium, but I think the highlight for Mercedes was Hamilton for this race, right? That pace was in.
We're back. We went from 20th up to 6th.
Yeah,
it was hammer time all over again.
If it wasn't for K-Mag, Hamilton could have easily won this race if that pace was going to stay true and all this stuff, and but fought back to finish 5th. I wasn't expecting to come back finish that high after that early incident, but hey, if he keeps driving like that, if we see that, I don't know if you're going to be able to see a lot of that skill in Monaco. It's not really that fast of a track for him to show off. So if he qualifies high, maybe he does well. But that was a heck of a race for Hamilton and a good sign for Mercedes.
Just looping back onto Hamilton, don't overtake Hamilton on the outside. Ask Albon, ask Max.
Master.
Every time someone goes to try to overtake him on the outside,
slight oversteer or understeer, slight understeer, right? Slight understeer.
It's more so the fact he doesn't relent. But he doesn't relent. He holds his line, and he runs the risk of understeering just that little bit into the person next to him.
Racing, right, Pete?
Also, as well, rubbing's racing. Also, as well, Bottas could do well in Monaco. The Alfa Romeo had the best speeds for the last chicane in Barcelona. And that's a very tight, twisty little sector of track. And what's Monaco? Tight and twisty. And Bottas has always done fairly well in Monaco. Usually does better in Hamilton in some regards.
We'll see.
Is this everyone's favorite street track coming up?
No.
Radelaide.
No, it's the prettiest, but it's not the most exciting. It's definitely not the most exciting. We'll find out. The race will be determined within the first couple laps, barring any wild engine.
I'm going to predict an exciting race. That's my prediction for this one.
Maybe it was.
Well, Ray, you might be right.
Yeah, I mean the Spanish Grand Prix was supposed to be boring. People were, the Spanish. Yeah, but I'm hoping for an exciting race in Monaco. And obviously, I'll be watching. I'll be there. So I would like to.
From the yacht with water. That's the difference between here and Miami. There's actual water versus vinyl.
I'll be watching from my, high-rise apartment / villa. But
/ villa.
So something, having an espresso, watching the race, turn, I don't know what.
Mate, I've got your vantage point right here. Okay?
Give me something good. Where would I be watching the race from? What turn is it? Okay, yeah.
So this is on top of the castle at Monaco. I actually went there in 2010.
What?
Ooh.
Not for the Grand Prix, but you can actually see where that's the start finish line is, the swimming pool sector, and you can see the run up to the casino.
Is it like really gorgeous out there, or is it?
It is gorgeous. It's very opulent. The casino is very lit as well.
Of course.
Like very old school.
Just.
Yeah.
Well, that
smells like cigars.
That's probably the perfect segue to talk a little bit about the Monaco track for all the new F1 newcomers. And what is this Monte Carlo Monaco track all about? So we have got some facts here. First race held in 1950. It's got 19 turns. One of the most fascinating things is it's full of restaurants, etc. And in between sessions, they close off the track, bring out the tables, and people have their wine and champagne and meals on the track, and then they clear it all out. Then the track goes back on again. So there's no rest in Monaco. Interesting stat: a driver will make 5,000 gear changes in a race at Monaco, which is off the hook. The way to describe the track as a driver, Nelson Piquet said it exceptionally well. He said, it's like trying to ride a bicycle around your living room. So, and look, I think we have to face it, like the Formula One cars have massively outgrown the Monaco track. So it's more about a glamour event rather than it be a track for the drivers. However, there are some drivers that absolutely love Monaco. Daniel Ricciardo is a massive fan, and Ayrton Senna to this day holds the record of 6 wins at Monaco as well. So he obviously loved that track too. A little bit of history on the Monaco track. It's still the record holder for the least amount of drivers finishing a race, which was only 3 back in 1996. And a driver by the name of Olivier Panis won that race in the Prost Mugen car. And I think when he got out, I think he pretty much said, yeah, I'm just as surprised as you. Because it was absolute chaos, and it was one of those races I don't think he even realised that he won till long after as well. It was just, 19 drivers either crashed, spun or retired in that race.
Oh, wow.
So, but a few interesting stats with Monaco is it has the slowest corner on the F1 calendar, which is only 48 kilometres per hour or 29.8 miles. A memorable moment is James Hunt, the shunt, back in the 70s, where he crashed at Monaco, and instead of getting off the track and going back to the pits, he proceeded to jump back onto the track and abuse the driver on the following lap around as he drove past. So yes, he's a very charismatic driver, shall we say, James Hunt, or was. As far as highlights go, for anyone that wants to get a bit of a history about Monaco, 1955, Ascari, a very famous driver, was the first driver to put his car into the water off the track. As he went through the tunnel, he didn't make the chicane and launched his car into the water. And
he survived that too.
1982 was a race that no one wanted to win. Every time a brand new driver took the lead, they retired. So it started with Prost, who crashed. One lap later, Patrese took over and then spun out. Another lap later, Pironi took the lead, ran out of fuel. Andre de Cesaris then took the lead, ran out of fuel. And then Derek Daly also crashed. So it was just one after the other of a lead change. And you guys know how much I love Murray Walker, the famous commentator back in the day. He just, every time he said the new leader, oh, now he's crashed. Oh, now he's crashed. And so he was losing his mind. 1984 was a very symbolic moment where Ayrton Senna almost won his first race in a car called Tolman, which was a massively underperforming slow car. It was in the wet weather where Ayrton Senna absolutely revelled in, and he was...
I remember watching that one.
Yeah, and he was about 2.5 seconds faster than Alain Prost, the leader, round the per lap. And once again, it was very controversial that the race was stopped just before Senna was about to overtake Prost. So the underlying element there was my favourite F1 president, Jean-Marie Balestre, was in charge, who was French in Monaco and wanted a French driver to win. So we'll just leave that there. 1992, Nigel Mansell finally got his 5-win streak broken by Ayrton Senna in Monaco. And in today's world, Senna would have got numerous penalties for weaving and holding Mansell back. But Mansell had a puncture, raced into the pits, came out with fresh tyres with 5 laps to go, and Senna made his car 6 metres wide. He just did not let Mansell through. And it was a really thrilling race, and you would never see 2 cars so close together around Monaco, but Senna managed to hold on for the win. And the only other one I'll mention is 2006, where Michael Schumacher controversially parked his car on the final corner, in the sense that he accidentally ran wide, but what he was actually doing was stopping anyone else being able to put in their qualifying lap to beat him, because he had already got the P1. And it was so obvious that Schumacher got stripped of his pole position anyway, and handed to Alonso because he impeded everyone else's laps. So it's worth watching the highlights, because as you watch Schumacher go around the last corner, you can see that, yeah, you deliberately ran wide and parked it so you couldn't do anything. So, yeah, that's the history of Monaco. So expect crashes, expect... It could be a very amazing race, or it could be a very boring race, because it's very difficult to overtake in Monaco. But let's open the first without any injuries. But let's hope there's lots of crashes and safety cars and a bit of controversy.
I mean, I love that tunnel. So
bring back the V12s in that tunnel.
Yeah, like I just need a few in-helmet cameras through the tunnel, drone shots of the marina, and I'll be good for this Sunday's event.
I tell you who's probably not looking forward to this Sunday's event. Charles Leclerc. He has never finished the Monaco Grand Prix in F2, F1, and the historic event recently. He crashed. The brakes failed on Niki Lauda's Ferrari, which he was driving, and he crashed it into the wall.
God. I mean, I would just love to work for Team Ferrari.
Get a win.
I saw him go take his COVID test in the F12 or something like that, and I was just like...
He needs a break.
Well, there you go. Well, let's early prediction. Let's say Leclerc wins this one. It'd be a good story if he finally finishes something or wins in his hometown. Puts him back on top of the points, but early drama in the race. It can also be Latifi wins this race. It can be anybody. Latifi can be on the podium, and like we said, if we can see Latifi on the podium in our lifetime, we'll have to do something ridiculous. But no, I hope for a lot of
poutine our shoes.
Yeah, I'm doing a shoey and the grossest running shoe I have.
All right, so Latifi with the race win. Ricciardo for second. God, if we're doing something for all of these things, we could be like, get ourselves in a bit of trouble here.
Bottas.
I don't know. Well, it's weird. Monaco isn't, Monaco isn't a fast track. We're not gonna see, super fast straightaways or anything like that. I think, whoever wins this race is someone who avoids contact as best as possible, can handle, start to or stop to start, quick speed, tight turns, right? But it really comes down to the beginning of that race, right?
That just sounds like a Mercedes win, because we haven't been good on the straight, so I just have a.
You haven't been good in slow corners either, so.
With all this porpoise and water there, it could be the next Ascari that go through the chicane and porpoise into the water. So
Oh, hey, look, we're here for it. We're here for the show. Okay.
Look at the Dolphin Show in Monaco Harbour, featuring Dolphin trainer Lewis Hamilton and George
Honestly,
Russell.
I would not be surprised if George made the top 3, because at least they're consistent. They're consistent.
George Russell in top 5.
Yeah,
easy money.
Like that you can just guarantee that he's going to be in no man's land for a bit.
Neck minute, power unit failure.
Yeah, quick question. So with the Ferrari and the power failures that we've seen in their power plant, does that concern you at all or anything like that? Or Max's DRS issue, is that something that gets resolved quickly before this race?
The DRS issue should be resolved by next race. The power unit, according to Mattia Binotto, wasn't anything to do with a reliability issue. I think it was the turbo that went. It wasn't the internal combustion engine. So, You know, it's still frustrating for Charles, though, especially when he had that race under control. And for Joe as well, because he also had a very similar issue.
Yeah.
You know, so 1/3 of the Ferrari power units didn't finish in Spain. And actually, speaking of Spain as well, Norris had tonsillitis. Yeah, couldn't speak, but could still beat him.
Yeah. You don't need your mouth to win a race. Sorry, Ricardo. The smile can't do nothing for you here.
Hey, since he had the braces, it is one pretty smile.
Hey, look, right. I mean, I'm pulling for Danny. He was essentially the greeter to this F1 world for me via Netflix. So I'm hoping, he starts pulling through.
Yeah.
I want to see some late braking again because when he sends it up the inside and gets past people, it is a thing of beauty. He is one of the great overtakers of this generation, and it's a shame he's never had the car to really win races easily.
Right. Hey, can I go back to Lando Norris?
You can do a whole.
How do you think they communicated with? How do you think they communicated with Lando Norris in the last race? Because there's not like they can say, "Hey, if you agree with that, bob up and down."
Actually, initially they did do that, and they were using the OK button on the steering wheel.
Okay.
1 click yes, 2 clicks
Wow.
no.
Wow.
Nice.
Yep.
It just amazes me when I see those steering wheels, all of the controls, and all of the things that they're maintaining, managing, noticing as a race goes on. It just blows me away. And like the fact that he's doing like another step while going 180 miles an hour into a corner is just, I don't know, like the mental focus is mind blowing.
Yeah, you're so
need lots and lots of concentration.
There is a famous quote here by a F1 journalist. Gentlemen, a short view back to the past. 30 years ago, Niki Lauda told us, take a monkey, place him into a cockpit, he's able to drive the car. 30 years later, Sebastian told us, I had to start my car like a computer. It's very complicated. And Nico Rosberg said that during the race. I don't remember what race. He pressed the wrong button on the wheel. Question for you both is Formula 1 driving today too complicated with 20 and more buttons on the wheel? Are you under too much pressure? What are your wishes for the future concerning technical program during the race? Less buttons, more, or less, and more communication with the engineers. What Seb's response to that question?
I love that dude. That dude that asks those questions because all the F1 drivers start smiling their heads off because he goes on for like 10 minutes.
Jeez. Almost lost me. You almost lost me on that whole.
It's a meme in the F1 community.
Nice.
I have to say. So, but it's also like Seb's response is one of the reasons why I like Seb. Just that very dry, quick wit, off the cuff.
I love reading his interviews. He's very fascinating.
It's been a very interesting journey for me watching Seb because being an Australian, watching Seb in Red Bull versus Mark, it was painful for us. He was young, he was a bit of an upstart, but he's grown, he's matured, and he's got a good heart.
Yeah,
and he's all about making sure that we have awareness about the environment. And when he was in Miami, all he talked about was, "This is nice, but if it's underwater in 5 years, it won't matter." And I really like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed.
All right, William, sign us off.
I think we have to do a driver profile segment again. No.
Oh no, wasn't no. Well, hey, who do we have for see? Because we skipped onto Monaco, so threw me out of whack.
What are we doing? Are we going to say
this was a driver profile?
Well,
we'll
have I got 5
we'll do a driver profile and then sign us off.
All right, beautiful. Thank you, everyone. It's something I've been excited, and every week we keep running out of time for it. So I always want to talk about some driver from the past and why they were amazing and why they're worth checking out. So starting off the ranks is one of my favourite drivers of all time, which is a French Sicilian driver called Jean Alesi. Now, Alesi was a electrifying driver for many reasons, but first things first, he was just ridiculously quick, pretty much sought after by every team on the grid. In his racing career, it's unbelievable that he only managed to win one race. First started in 1989 with a team called Tyrrell, which is now the Mercedes team after backtracking. So anyway, but back then nothing to do with Mercedes. But so first race 1989 with Tyrrell. He's raced for Tyrrell, Ferrari, Benetton, Sauber, Prost and Jordan, so he's been across quite a few teams. One of the most fascinating things about Jean Alesi was his driving style. So most drivers hold the wheel at 10 and 2. There's my camera. Where he would he would hold the wheel at 11 and 1. So literally like this. And it turns out that the reason he drove like that was back in the day when Formula One cars didn't have power steering. They were so heavy to turn that he found that was the most effective way of turning the wheel. So he actually adapted his driving style because of no power steering back then. And he also had a very unique way of twisting his head. So if you ever do look at some videos of Jean Alesi, you can see his hands on the wheel like that, and he would really, really contort his head as he turned around the corner. So these two, this just made it very interesting to watch him drive. In 1990, he literally lit up the whole F1 paddock with his talent as a very young driver and held off Ed Senna for first place for 25 laps in Phoenix. And Senna could not get past him, then Senna did pass him, then Alesi passed him back. And we're talking about a driver in a very underpowered car, miles off the mark compared with the McLarens and the Ferraris, etc. And this young dude that's holding Ed and Senna back for first place. So he pretty much got the attention of every team on the grid, and it was quite interesting. In 1991, there were 3 teams that went out that said that they had actually hired Alesi for the 1991 season, all saying, "Yep, he's racing for us. We've got a contract signed," and all the rest of it. He actually did sign for Williams, but based on a lot of controversy, he decided not to. He decided to cancel it. So yeah, he eventually signed with Ferrari, but he signed for Ferrari at a time where Ferrari was on a decline in the early 90s. But he always managed to outperform the car. He would do all these death-defying stunts where everyone will go in on a wet track and go on and change to wet tyres, where he would stay out on slicks and he'd do like 7 spins, manage to get it back on the track and just continue to go around the track on slicks. He was known for doing times to the equivalent of someone on wet tyres. He could do those times with slick tyres. That's how good he was in the wet. Yeah, which is amazing. He had a unique number 27, which is so authentic on a Ferrari back in the early 90s. He was compared to... Sorry, Pete?
Didn't
Yeah, and the next one he was actually compared to Gilles Villeneuve in driving style and acrobatics and just absolute raw talent. The other part is he did get a pole position at Monza when he was with Ferrari, which is, in Italy, if you get pole with Ferrari, you're a god. But the gearbox failed going into the pits, and in absolute furious anger, he drove 200 kilometres an hour down the pit lane that race.
What?
Yeah, but yeah, look, all you need to type in is Jean Alesi career highlights, and I guarantee it will be a very entertaining watch. He's, as I said, one of my favourite drivers of all time. Him in a Ferrari with black spoilers, early 90s, and his acrobatics. Get on it, it's worth checking out.
Yeah.
I finally get to do my F1 driver segment. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we love it.
We look forward to the next one. We'll make sure to do it just to make up for the ones we didn't do. We'll do it. We'll do it next week too.
Thanks, guys. And
I mean, like, the history is always important. There's only a handful of drivers in the world that we get to witness per year, so it's always nice.
All right. Well, thank you, Will. With that said, take us away, man. Take us home.
Alrighty, so sign off. Okay, so you have been listening to The Paddock, which is a Formula One podcast for new and existing Formula One fans. Coming at you once again from both New Jersey, USA and Radelaide, South Australia. As always, we love hearing your feedback. Please subscribe to our channels. Please fill us full of questions. We love F1 and love to chat any chance we can. Quote of the week. I love this one from our good old Aussie compatriots, Daniel Ricciardo. Sometimes you've just got to lick the stamp and send it. So once again, it's been an absolute pleasure. We look forward to chatting again soon on our next podcast. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.